This is a half a brain that was prepared for me to make a mold with. Using an air compressor, I used a spray nozzle to spray out all the water from the bucket that it was in. Okay, so we have the brain here. I just blew it out with all the air and got all the water out. We're doing just one hemisphere, and so we'll just go ahead and coat that with the dragon skin and see how it goes. So what we're going to do first, get this off to the side a little bit. Mix up our material first. This is platinum silicon medium 10, which means that the it's going to take about 20 minutes pot life, and should be good. I'm going to color it. It probably comes at a certain color also, but my goal here is to get it to a color that I can sort of recognize as being one way or the other. Basically, we mixed up 1 part each of this. What we're going to do is we're going to color it with one of these colors, these sort of test colors that I have. We have brown and black. Flesh. I think I want to use flesh. Green, that sounds like a good color. I'm going to use green to sort of mix with part A. Good. Okay, so we got the vacuum chamber going, and we got it at 1 atmosphere, and it's bubbling up, and hopefully we can get all the bubbles out before the pot lights. Okay, we just did the vacuum chamber, and now the material is very smooth, no bubbles in it. So we're going to now use a syringe with a small tube attachment. What I'm going to do is I'm going to take off the attachment and suck up the material I can. That's even with 7% thinner in it. Okay. So, got a syringe full of the dragon skin, aptly colored. And we'll go ahead and start getting this into some of the cracks here. Get some more. What would you say is the hardness of the brain? Is it like marshmallow or?
Harder than that. Pencil eraser. What do you think?
What's that?
Like a pencil eraser.
But it can tear just as well like a pencil eraser?
That is pretty durable.
Is it? Okay.
You'd have to actually probably slice it. I mean, you could bump into it with something, and I don't think it's going to.
my goal is to make sort of a flange, about like this. Paste it on there a little bit. Now, I'm going to wait about 20 minutes and then mix up another batch. Okay, so now that we've got this sort of set, I'm going to mix up another batch to sort of basically drizzle over top. So I'm going to get that worked up right now. Stuff that I'm just going to use a scissor and maybe cut up to make it a little bit thicker in some areas so that it won't just all come right out. All right. Wait. No, not. See, good. We're not going to go with the thinner this time. We don't need to fill in all the cracks. So I'm thinking that to have it thick is going to be probably the better way to go. Yeah. Doesn't quite look like blood. It looks like kind of glassy blood. I didn't really put that much in there, so I'm just wanting sort of a difference between the green, what I'm going to be pouring on. All right, I'm going to go ahead and degas it and go from there. This is a kind of a homemade thing. This is a cookie jar with a kind of a experiment with 27T that went wrong, so I just cut a hole out of it and hook our tube up, shut up that valve, hook up the vacuum chamber, make sure it's even all around, and put the dial here. Push down on it, get started. Good. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to have to watch this a little bit because I don't want it bubbling over there. So we'll make sure that it doesn't start bubbling over. It's going to rise and fall several times. I'm hoping that I can just pour this over top and everything will be copacetic. I'm a little concerned seeing these little white spots here. That tells me that we removed some of the brain as we are using the syringe, and so I'm kind of concerned about the structure of the brain, whether it's going to rip when we pull this out from those smaller areas there. Okay, so all the bubbles are out. Go ahead and release. So there's our material. Now I'm going to take part of this material and mix it with this gauze that I just cut up shards with. Some of these sort of impregnate this mess to make a thicker material sort of put over top that won't just slip through it right through. Might need it a little bit more. All right, now I'm gonna pour some of this right on top. I don't know if this is going to be a good idea or not, but it seems like, I mean, very really thick stuff. So what I'm hoping to do is sort of lay it as a cover, or as a more and more that we pour stuff into this area, the more it's just going to filter through. Going to use some of it down in here. Since we've already got most of the crevices sort of covered, I'm hoping that this stuff will sort of fill in the big areas down in here, so that we won't have to keep on pouring and keep on pouring. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
All right. I think that's pretty good for now. Let that set up for about another 10 minutes. And we'll mix up another batch to go over top, and then we'll leave it for the night.
Mm-hmm.
Sound good?
Mm-hmm.
All right. But you can see how the color really helped us sort of figure out where it was needed to be covered.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and all the contrast
Yeah.
is very important.
All right. Okay, so it's been about 20 minutes, and after pouring the blood material over top, it basically hardly covered. I think there's only probably about a 1/16 of material there. My little gauze thing is holding up pretty well. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to sort of mix together some of that gauze, kind of small shards. What I did is I sort of cut up this gauze and sort of made very small shards of this that I'm going to just put up just a tiny bit in. All right. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to mix now up a yellow version of this coat. And I think we got some yellow going here. We'll do a little bit of part A. Doing the yellow here. It's actually a little bit brighter than I think I would have wanted, or somewhat like clearer. But I think when I put the shards in there, I think it'll be all right. All right, I think it's almost ready. Little bit of these shards. Thicken up. So now just putting in about, I don't know, like about a ½ an inch of those shards has really thickened this up.
Mm-hmm. So this is different. I mean, you're filling in voids, but you're not actually doing anything for the viscosity of the liquid itself.
Yeah, you're right.
You're
Let's put a little bit more in.
You're adding volume.
I'm adding volume, yeah.
But you're not actually slowing the volume from running. In fact, with the weight, I see you're giving it something to grip onto. But
Yeah,
we need to make some peanut butter.
Peanut butter, that's what we need.
Add more peanuts then.
I got peanut butter and honey now. So that's, I don't know. Maybe I should put some more in there, because I really don't want to get it on there and say, oh man, I wish I had some more in there. So this is about 5 minutes or so of mixing. What do you think?
It's like cold honey.
Yeah, not quite spun honey yet. We need a little bit more.
This is making me hungry. I'm gonna start making all my dinners with food colors. This is good. I'm gonna have, what did he eat last night? What colors did he go for? Oh, he had a whole psychedelic dish of rice and chicken noodles.
Oh my gosh. All right, I'm thinking that's pretty good. All right, so
That would be great.
what we're gonna do is sort of.
Are you recording?
Yeah.
Oh. Oh God.
So it's running, but I think it's given a little bit of rigidity too. And like we said, we're sort of experimenting to some degree. Leaning towards that way.
What, put more galls on it?
Just put a.
Just lay them over it?
Lay it right over top. I mean, this would essentially hold the structure, right?
Yeah. And there's a hairnet.
Yeah.
We go into the Nosh cafeteria. Can we borrow one of your hairnets?
Hopefully.
Oh, there you go.
Because we don't need it to fill any holes. I mean, I'm just going to start filling this over top. And adding some thickness to the whole thing. We'll see that tomorrow. Where's mine? Where's in? See how full the load is on you. Alright. Call it. So this is where we were. So I got this bucket, and what I did is I cut a hole out of the top of it so that I can put this bag into it and spray some of this great stuff into it. So I'm hoping to make a nice little support for my brain mold. All right. All right. Let's see how this. So this stuff did not work out, basically because it was an enclosed environment. It was very, very bad. So this is what we did. Is go ahead and we just got the great stuff and just put it around, and so it's drying in the air. So basically this is what it needs to be. This is as hard as it needs to be. So we'll try again. Okay, I think that was the way to do it. So this is now nice and hardened. Now we have a nice cradle for the brain. Say that this is the cerebellum. That way I know. Good. All right. So what I did here is I decided to cut around the great stuff mold I had and fit this over top, and then I did a bead of the great stuff to provide me with this nice little shell here. That way, once I get the mold and the brain, I'll be able to set it right on top of here, and this will give it the kind of support that we need for the brain. Because now the professor wants me to try to actually make a mold so that the whole thing is encapsulated. So I'm going to attempt to do that with this mold support and another layer, and I'll take you through that process. One of the things I'm doing is I got this sort of gauze material. It's called a gauze sponge, and if you look at the material, basically it sort of goes this way and that way. But what I'm doing, I'm sort of cutting along this edge to make little fine strands that can sort of pull apart, and that will sort of mix with the silicone to make sort of strong structures. And so as I'm sort of cutting off in a diagonal form, these little strands will make the silicone a lot thicker in areas, and you'll see that I'm sort of going to build up kind of ribs in order to support the structures that I'm going to place on top. I'm going to make these strands, and then I'm going to go ahead and cut these into long strands this way so that it will get support, and I'm just going to try to separate those. Okay, so there's our supports, and these are the stringy, strandy material that I'm going to use for just sort of bulking and making the material a little bit stronger. So there we go. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to go ahead and take this and put it in this mold. Now what I did is I sort of marked where the cerebellum is, which is on this side here. So if I take this and put it like this, then I know that once I take this up, I'll be able to put it right where it needs to go. Okay, so actually, it's looking pretty good. It actually filled in a lot of those small little areas that I didn't think it would do. But let me just get you over here so to see that some of these areas are filled in. So that, what I'm going to probably do is actually I'm going to probably cut those out to some degree. So we'll see if that should be what needs to happen or not. It's always true. So I'm thinking that if we make the mold, we're going to have to pull out the brain, so this can't come across here. So I'm just going to cut this away a little bit. Yeah, it's probably a good thing I'm doing this because you can see there's lots of areas that still need to be filled in. But you can sort of see some of the detail. Okay, it's looking pretty good. Now what we're going to have to do is make sort of a key. So I was trying to think of, I could potentially make some holes in here, or I can make some slices. I think what I'm going to do is make some slices and then just raise them up. All right, so let's go ahead and do I'm going to back this up. So,
spray this first with the ease release. Then go ahead and spray this. And we're going to let that dry. Let that dry for about 5 minutes. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and place this back in here. Make sure there's a good seal. Yeah, putting in the material down inside these gaps.
So what's where it's seeped in, and unless there's a gap, it's really not an issue. But then again, like right in here,
yeah,
you really need to get that really needed not to happen, right?
right. So I know that we had a good, coverage in there. We probably should just go ahead and
Just take it off.
take all this off of here, because we're going to need to make sure that
You get a good, accurate print.
right, because you can see this doesn't go all the way down. It only goes a little bit. So
I got to thinking more about this. This has huge potential, man. Just everything does, but this is very interesting. You recording?
yeah,
Okay. You need a smaller, a better, a different. Well, you don't want to be careful. You don't want it too sharp because you'll be to nick a piece of the brain.
yeah, I've already done that.
Mm-hmm.
But I was telling Dr. White that this is not the process I would have done in order to do this portion of the brain. But he wanted to go ahead and do it, probably because it's it would be a good test, I guess. But and it would probably help him in the long run understand the process a little bit better.
Mm-hmm.
See, I know that we got that part, but
What, the mole release?
no, just some of these areas. Some of these areas are too shallow. The crevices I know are deep, but the material did not seep all the way in. Because you can see how shallow those crevices are compared to how deep the actual crevice is.
What's going on out here? Nothing.
Yeah, that's yeah.
So suppose if you just took I don't know.
I don't want to take a razor blade.
And then it would just.
Well, I think it's going to come off as it is.
All right.
So what I've done here is also, which I was explaining in my video, that I've basically cut these areas here to make a sort of key. Now I know that material is going to probably seep down in there, but I've already sprayed mold release on the support and on the bottom of this mold here.
But you do have a support now.
I do have a support.
That was that was sort of also that was an experiment too.
Yeah.
See how. Good.
So now I've got these two jars filling down to the top of the port. I'm going to mix both of those together, and I've got long-stranded gauze here and short-stranded gauze. And so here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to use this guy, and I think what I'm going to do is sort of drill down with this, and then do some straw ports. So I was going to take these straws, take off the thing, and then make them into ports in areas so that we will take first of all, we'll inject everything and then build up little ribs, support for the little straws and for this guy, so that when we take the brain out, we'll have this top that will be supported, have a spout that we'll be able to take off of here. Which reminds me, I need to go ahead and spray mold release on this guy. And that will be sort of our top layer that will fit, and then we can pour material into the ready-made port that we made by using this as a form, and then it will pour down in there. I'll probably just go ahead and fill up the brain area first, and then get this down on top, and then pour in. Alright, so I got my color, basically got a lot of yellow and some red, and I'm going to mix this up to make an orange as a good contrast for the, well, might need a little bit more yellow. I wanted to do orange, but I got more red than I thought I had. Alright, so let's get some more yellow. Not too terribly. What happens when you don't pay attention to what you're doing. I think that'll be a good contrast on that. So maybe not an orange, maybe just a bright red. Okay. And we're going to go ahead and mix in the accelerant in here. I'm going to go ahead and vacuum gas that. All right, got 171. That means that we can put 17 grams of this thinner in there. All right, that's pretty good. Yep, I think it's too high to mix, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to pour this all into here. All right, so now we've got the material. I'm going to go ahead and extract some in this syringe to fill up some of these small areas, and small area time. So what I did on this one is I took off the outer ring on this guy here so that it would not be so dangerous to the brain. I got it where it needs to go. Now I'm going to take this funnel and bury it right into here. Let's see. I think I'll just go into here. And then we'll take a straw, a couple of ports. One right here. Maybe one right over here. What we're going to do now is use our brush to brush in all around that. I think that tube's going to make it. Now, I need to take what's left and mix in some shards. Set that down there. And I'm going to make some goop with this material here to make little rib spots to hold up the straws and the spout. So I'll do that. I think I'll mix in the stronger stuff now. Running out of pot lifetime, So it's getting very thick, but that's okay because it won't run all over the place. All right, I think that will suffice. I think it's pretty strong in there. I think there's probably a pretty good layer in there. So I don't think I'll need to do another layer, I don't think. So, see how that goes. Okay, so it is now all cured. And we're ready to start peeling up this top layer and seeing how we did. So I'm just gonna go ahead and just try to start taking out these ticks here. Just holding up our key area. And it looks like it will just pop right out here. But I was wondering if my mold release would actually release it from where it needed to be released from. It looks like it's not sticking, but it's got a pattern that is kind of, I don't know how you call it. It's got a kind of a pattern to it. So I think what I'm going to try to do is release this first. That's good. So we have our spout. Our straw openings here. Reload later. All right. Silicone is designed to stick to silicone. So with the mold release, we can get it apart. Whoa. Okay. Don't think we'll be able to use that part. Wow. Well, looks like it didn't pull out very many pieces of the brain, so I'm happy with that. But the question is, will I be able to put this back where it's supposed to go? see where the original holes were. Here, here, and here. So I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to cut a notch so I can tell what is what, or where it's supposed to go. Now I know where it's supposed to go. All right, so I'm gonna go ahead and get some gloves on, and we're gonna try to pull the brain out of the mold. Beautiful. Wow. It did really well. The brain is, for the most part, still intact. But it has some damage from what we did with the syringes. So we're going to have to modify our usage of the syringes, because the syringes basically damaged parts of the brain as we were injecting the material, because it had a sort of an outer ring, and so all that detail will have been transferred to the model there. But at least we have an idea of what it can do. So yeah. All right, I'm going to take this back to the lab. All right, so what I want to show you a little bit was that this syringe, because of that outer ring, and then we didn't have a proper attachment for it, damaged the brain in certain areas where we injected the material. So basically it had a sort of a ring sort of damage all around it. So this brain would not be able to be used again because of all the nicks and damages that we used. So we knew that this brain could be damaged as part of this process. So we know what to do better next time. So I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to sort of clean up this spout a little bit. Clean up the sealer areas here. All right, so I'm going to get some gloves on, and I'm going to take out some of the brain material that was left in there. Okay, so I just washed the molds off with water, all nice and clean. I washed them with hot water. All right, I think we're good on that. Now it's time for show and tell. So what we're going to do is I'm going to go ahead and use this mold release to spray all around it, because I'm sure that the material is just going to go everywhere. So we're going to spray everywhere we can. Let that dry. I'm going to probably spray this side too, just in case, down the little holes, so that the material won't have anything to stick to. Also, going to spray some more on this side. And in there. Okay. So, cerebellum is there, and cerebellum is here. All right, we have that set. Now, I need to take our straw. Make some space here. This is going to go here. So the straw, I'll go ahead and cut into, well, basically going to just cut it in half. And then I'm going to, this should be good anyway, but I'll go ahead and spray this. And what I want to do is just set this down in here so that the air can escape. Do the same with this one. Here. Okay, that's ready to go. Now I need to put some sort of port on that. I had thought about reusing this, but I think what will happen is that it will stick too far down inside. I suppose I could cut it off because it served its purpose, but I feel like I need to hold on to that. So I'm going to use a different tool. What I was going to talk to about is that, I don't know if you can sort of see this, but this little area here is actually kind of bent down. So what I'm going to attempt to do is sort of hold it up with a kind of stick or just a piece of silicone in there, and hopefully that will be all right. So I'm going to make kind of a little shard of material with some of this other silicone that I've had in the past, and make a kind of stand for it. And maybe do a kind of some little thing. What I'm going to try to attempt to do is make the brain color. What do you think? Get that in there. I think that might do well with the white material. Let's just stick. So this mixture, which is 450, excuse me, it is this mixture, it is 451, adding 45. Okay. And then I'm going to add this thinner, 495 and 5%. It gets us 20 grams. That. Put it in the color.
So what happens when you make a mistake that goes into a different mistake and then leads you to another mistake? So here's what happens. So I had this container and this container. I thought this container was empty and I turned it over and made a big mess here. So I went back to go clean it up and my material overflowed all the way down into the bottom there. I think I still have enough to get it done, but that is a big no-no. Alright, so we're just about done with the bubbles. Most of them have cleared out of there. We gotta wait till all those get out. Still very big bubbles coming out of there. That's why it's important to wait until everything is out. To inject this material in some of the areas that I know will have a hard time filling up. Alright, I'm going to use my little shard here to stand this up. So it's staying up. Meanwhile, that is setting up there. I will get another batch started. We're able to get this guy. So while that's setting up, I'm going to go ahead and put that on the jiggling machine. So basically I have sort of a detent where it's just enough to sort of jiggle any other bubbles out. So I'll let that go while I'm cleaning up the rest of this material. We have our next batch of material, and we're going to use this and align it with marks that I have here. So I have this sort of notch right here that corresponds with this notch, and then lines that represent the cuts that I made. All right, we'll go with that. All right, so here we go. And what I'm looking for is for the material to sort of stop coming up here. I want us to see it coming out of there, then I'm going to stop putting it in here. But I got to be very careful.
Alright, I can already see that it's coming out this area over here. I might try to do sort of stave it off, something like that. It's already filling up some of these other areas. Another, yeah. Alright, so I can see the bottom of the area there. Go ahead and pour some more in there. Alright, we're gonna go with that. I think that's all we can do for now. Okay, it's Saturday. It's about 6:30, and I'm gonna go ahead and see what we got here. All right. Wow. I knew that it was gonna overflow, but I didn't know that much. Wow. All right. This is going to prove to be a bit more of a challenge than I thought. All right, I'm going to back up a little bit. Air bubbles. Air bubbles everywhere. I knew that would be the case, but I tried to get most of the air bubbles out. Mr. Bill is still a little bit intact. Oh no, Mr. Bill. totally destroyed. But big learning lesson. The biggest learning lesson is to take your mold release and make sure you get it all done underneath these lips, underneath here. I wish I had done that, but that was rough. Okay, well, I think that's about as good as I'm gonna get. All this stuff here and all this stuff here is totally fused with the other silicone. But it's a good learning experience. It's very durable. So, well, it's been a long journey, and I've learned quite a bit over this process. So I hope to be able to apply these lessons in their future molds. So thanks for watching, and see you next time.